What?
What up, Top Dot? You live on Taylor? Here we go.
Hey, welcome to the Not Move podcast, everybody. Thanks for joining with us today.
Hey, welcome to the Not
It
Move
is
podcast.
September 14th, 2025 at
Thanks for joining with us
9:16
today.
Eastern
It
Time.
is September 14th, 2025 at 9:16 Eastern Time AM.
What's that?
What's going on, JB?
What's up? A little difficult to hear you.
What's that?
A little difficult to hear you.
Hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me better?
Right. Thanks for joining today, everybody. I'm not necessarily here to give you picks for today, but I will give you my analysis.
Right. Thanks for joining today, everybody. I'm not necessarily here to give you picks for today, but I will give you my analysis.
Many other good
More
sources.
importantly, I'm here to give you guys some statistics that you can use to help with your decision-making process. There are many other good sources out there for information that you can use as tools to help you with your decision-making process,
in general,
such as other members of the Not Move podcast and just other podcasts in general.
For a lot of the information that I'm going to be talking about
I just want to cite my sources before we get started.
NFLweather.com.
For a lot of the information that I'm going to be talking about today, I use rotogrinders.com, NFLweather.com, rotowire.com, ESPN.com, teamrankings.com, fantasy.nfl.com, statnews.com, sharpfootballanalysis.com,
So, I know you're
and fantasypros.com.
JB.
All right. So, I know you're a Chiefs fan, JB. I know that's a later game, isn't it?
Yeah. We're 3:00 game.
Really excited about this.
Yeah, I usually like to start talking about the early games first, but I'm really excited about this Eagles and Chiefs matchup. If you want to, give us your thoughts about this game, or if you want me to kind of take the lead.
Man, with this game, bro. I don't know, dude. I'm expecting, Kansas City to honestly get an L. I've expected us beginning of the season when the schedule came out to start the year off 0-2 and 2-2 within the first 4 weeks, right? The Chiefs are pretty banged up. Worthy being out. We don't have. It's crazy. It's only week 2. It's just comes down to but Worthy being out. We don't have Rice available. So it really comes down to Hollywood Brown being our guy, Juju Smith-Schuster. In Hollywood, everybody knows he hasn't really done anything. Our running game, probably also due to the line. We got a rookie at our left tackle. We got a rookie at left guard. He's not a rookie. I'm having a lot of backfire.
Every time I talk, I hear myself talking here.
Betters. Every time I talk, I hear myself talking your stuff.
Whatever you're sitting on is bouncing off. Whatever your mic
is, whatever you're sitting on is bouncing off. Whatever your mic, your speaker. So it's sitting on your desk. I'm going to pick your phone up.
No. Is that better?
Yeah. No.
No.
Oh. Yeah.
But yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
It's his phone.
But yeah, you know, it's just where it's sitting.
But yeah, you know what I mean. You got a rookie left tackle.
But yeah, you know what I mean.
He's a left tackle.
You got a rookie left tackle. You got a left guard who essentially is a left tackle, and this is only his second year, so he's a first-year starter. You know, so I mean, dude, we kind of got, you know, we got some commodity. We need, you know, we need everybody to mesh on that line. You know what I mean? And you know, I get it, dude. Like we're starting off slow, bro. You know what I mean? Like we got too much.
I didn't expect
We played too much, bro. We got fatigue, dog. You know what I mean?
blowing everything out the water.
I didn't expect us to start fast. I didn't expect us to be blowing everything out the water. You know what I'm saying right now? I actually consider this to be a step back here for the Chiefs. Philly, I know Philly's pretty beat up too. They're missing some players as well. We went over this. I don't really have anything.
Maybe mute.
But yeah, I don't really have anything
I'm
else.
just trying to figure out this audio issue here, JB. Maybe mute my microphone. I'm just trying to figure out this audio. See, I haven't been on TikTok in a minute. How would I mute my mic? I haven't been on TikTok in a minute. On TikTok.
You hit the 3 buttons over there on the right. You hit 3 buttons on the right, and then hit mute.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so I'm just going to give my breakdown of this game. You know, you mentioned that Worthy's out. It'll be interesting to see who steps up for this Chiefs wide receiving corps today, whether it's Hollywood Brown, Juju, Thornton, Brownlee, Rumihio. Also, man, you know, I don't know if you mentioned this, but Goddard's out for Philadelphia, the tight end. I know the Chiefs were extremely vulnerable to that tight end position last season.
Yeah.
Defending against it. They allowed the most receiving yards last season to tight ends and the third most receptions. So, you know, just based on that, you know, I think it's beneficial that Goddard's out of this game for the Chiefs at least. But let me just kind of give my summary of this game here that I got wrote down. You know, Andy Reid going up against his former team, Philadelphia today. I'm a little uncertain about who has the passing advantage in this game. The Chiefs are running thin at that wide receiver position, like we were just talking about. And Philadelphia's pass defense was great last season as they ranked second in passing yards allowed per game. Dallas was a very not Dallas. Why do I have Dallas up here? It's early. Oh, no. I'm right. I'm talking about Dallas here. I do want to talk about Dallas. So, yeah, Dallas was a very pass-heavy team as they ranked 6th in passing play percentage in 2024. And after week 1, Dallas currently ranks 12th in passing play percentage. So a high percentage of Dallas's passing plays or play calling are passing plays, not just last year, but this year as well after week 1. And I think the Eagles did a good job at containing Dak Prescott last year, as they only allowed him to throw for 188 yards and 0 touchdowns. I think the Chiefs do have their hands full today for sure. And the only reason why I'm uncertain if the Eagles have a passing advantage is because no other team called a higher percentage of rushing plays than the Eagles last season. The question really is, how effective can the Eagles be when they do pass the ball? How effective can they be if they're forced to pass the ball? And then, the Chiefs ranked 19th in passing yards allowed per game last season. I just mentioned it earlier. They were extremely vulnerable to tight end receiving yards and receptions allowed to tight ends. Now, Calcaterra is listed as the starter on the depth chart last that I saw for the Eagles today at that tight end position, but he wasn't targeted in that week 1 matchup against Dallas. It was actually Granson who had 1 reception, 1 target, and 1 yard in week 1 against Dallas. If you guys are looking for, maybe a sleepy tight end today, I think, Granson could be that guy. Now, the Chargers didn't attack the Chiefs, tight end vulnerability much in week 1, so it's tough to gauge if the Chiefs got any better at defending that tight end position. JB, have you heard anything about the Chiefs addressing the tight end defense during the offseason?
I thought they were supposed to be doing. It's been one of their keys to limit the tight end vulnerability. Like last year, you're saying, we could not stop tight ends. That was our Achilles heel. Between Tranquil's supposed to really be out there to help with that. We our secondary, dude, is nothing what it's supposed to be.
I'm just seeing a comment in the chat. Yeah, Granson is a tight end for Philadelphia.
Yeah. Gray is Kansas backup.
Okay, here. So, the Chiefs were also vulnerable last season to receiving touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. A.J. Brown has had a touchdown in 3 out of 6 career games against the Chiefs, compared to Devontae Smith, who has had 1 touchdown in 4 career games against them. The Chiefs also allowed, they ranked 17th in opponent yards per completion last season, and A.J. Brown ranked 7th best in the NFL and the best on the Eagles in yards per catch. Devontae Smith, I just want to say that he ranked 64th in the NFL in that category in yards per catch last season. Now, as I stated earlier, the Eagles' pass defense was great last season and statistically defended well against Dallas in week 1. Their biggest vulnerability in regard to where they ranked against other teams at defending against a specific position was receiving yards allowed to running backs. But they were still good at that. They allowed the 7th fewest last season. Now, Pacheco and Hunt split receiving targets in week 1 with 3 apiece. And Hunt did pick up more yardage. The Eagles ranked first last season in opponent yards per completion, so they did a great job at consistently limiting big gains. JB, who do you feel is more capable of having a big impact in the passing game, Pacheco or Hunt?
Hunt, as always. Pacheco's not really a receiving back. Hunt's always kind of had that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What's up, B?
What's up, B? Okay, so just okay. So the Eagles' biggest rush defense vulnerability last season and their biggest defensive vulnerability as a whole were rushing yards allowed to running backs. Yesterday, Pacheco's over-under on rushing yards was 35.5. He's gone over that line 2 out of 3 career games against the Eagles. He went over that line in 4 out of 10 games last season. Now, Hunt's over-under on rushing yards was 23.5 last I checked. He's gone over that in 1 out of 3 career games against the Eagles. He went over that line 12 out of 16 times last season. Now, the Chiefs could have been better at converting in the red zone last season. They ranked 21st in red zone conversion rates. And the Eagles did a good job at preventing teams from capitalizing when they did enter the red zone. But the Chiefs did do a good job at getting into the red zone last season. I mean, the Eagles' defense is just good, man.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to bore everybody with statistics all day, but yeah, man. I think you know, I don't know what your thoughts are, but you know, I'm thinking that the Chiefs are going to have to run the ball well in this one.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to run the ball well, but the thing I think of is if Juju, Kelsey, anybody in the wide receiver tight end room can get going fast and have a good day. Philadelphia had a problem in the secondary last week. Their secondary, they've been it's just none good. And that Prescott kind of, you know, Houston, you know what I'm saying? You know, hot too, you know what I mean? But hey, that's gonna be a different story too, because he's gonna be playing just hot too, you know. Hopefully, you know, he keeps his life to himself. But yeah, dude, I think actually exactly. I mean, I think as of last week, or the same thing as last week, we should have established the run with the pass. I don't like it, you know, that Andy Reid does that kind of stuff. He goes away from the run. I think we only ran the ball like 15 times last week. Just like, yeah, I want them to really like try to run and maybe pull that play action a little bit, pull that secondary and the linebackers down. I think with the Chiefs being at home on top of that, you know, I think it does pull a lot of weight for the Chiefs. It could definitely gas them up, I'll tell you that, you know. But we'll see. Like I said, though, man, I think the actual pivotal thing is setting up the pass with the run and just tear up their secondary. That's where they've been having their issues. I know Grant games could have and been different, and you know, like the pass defense could have been helped by their defensive line if Carter would have been there, but we don't know because Carter hasn't played a snap. So we don't know if he's even at the same level that he was last year, playing like he was last year. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you got more film on him. You know, it happens, bro. We'll see. We'll see today how this guy holds.
Now, the biggest vulnerability I saw in the run defense for the Chiefs last season were rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks, which really benefits the Eagles today. You know that the Eagles like to run the ball with Hurts. And last week, I mean, just so you know how much they like to run with Hurts, last week, for a small sample size, Barkley had 18 carries and Hurts had 14 carries.
Yeah, Hurts had 62 yards, Barkley had 60. Yeah, I'm very hit.
Now, on Friday, I saw that Hurts's over-under on rushing yards was 40.5. He's gone over that line in 3 out of 4 career games against the Chiefs. And then he's had at least one rushing touchdown in 3 out of 4 career games against the Chiefs. And then last season, he had a rushing touchdown in 13 out of 19 games. I think there's a decent chance that he does get into the end zone again today. You know, with the Chiefs allowing the you know, with the Chiefs just being vulnerable to those quarterback rushing yards, you know. And the Eagles last season, they were good at not only getting into the red zone but converting in the red zone. So I think it's important for the Chiefs to lock in on Jalen Hurts, trying to prevent him from running today.
Yeah, that's a must. It's gonna be crazy to see how they plan out for this game. Do they go and try to stop the run, or do they try to defend the pass? Because you think the pass defense was not very good last week either. So that's all got to be kind of worried. More I can see a double destruction, man. Is they're trying to double down yet again on Barkley and run, and then with a safety secondary, they just tear us up. Do what he did last time. Force me to pass, well, I'll pass. And only tweet, not pass. But
so what's your prediction in this game, JB? Statistically, guys, I see that the Eagles outmatched the Chiefs in this one. And I'm specifically worried about Jalen Hurts rushing against the Chiefs. But I'm going to pick the Chiefs in this game. I'm going to pick the Chiefs. But I do think Jalen Hurts could have a big game. Also, I think there was another guy that I mentioned, one of the Eagles wide receivers, right? A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, if you guys are looking for a wide receiver for Philadelphia, that's who I would look for. And then for a sleeper for Philadelphia, we talked about the tight end Granson. And then as far as the Chiefs, I think the guy I'd be looking for is I'm gonna say really their running backs, Pacheco or Hunt.
Yeah, Pacheco or Hunt. I'm gonna say on the Chiefs side aspect to look at, should be looking for I think Gray and Juju are gonna go off for the Chiefs.
Like I said, I gotta see more. I gotta see Juju play before I can really put him on there.
Barkley 2.5 receptions all day.
So the Chiefs though, blessed up. Let's see, they allowed the 5th fewest receptions to running backs last season. And I can look up Barkley's game log real quick to see how many times he's had 3 or more receptions against the Kansas City Chiefs. So we can go back and look at that. The most recent game, he had 6 receptions in last year's championship game. So what's that? 1 of 1. Let's look at some other history here. Kansas City. Just going through his game log real quick.
No, you're good. Oh yeah.
So has he only? It looks like just by skimming it, looks like he's only played 1 career game against the Chiefs. But I'm kind of moving quickly here. That's what it looks like. So I mean, then something else you could do, blessed up P, is look at last season's game log and check how many times did he get. What was the question? Over 2.5 receptions, right?
Yeah.
2.5 receptions. How many times did he have 3 or more receptions last season? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 6 games out of 20 games. So that's not good, man. And the Chiefs did good at limiting that last season. Also, no other team called a higher percentage of rushing plays than the Eagles last season. I'd have to lean towards the under on that. But JB, you like the over?
I do. Oh, I don't even know if you can hear me. Yeah, I do. Yeah, you know it.
Well, thanks for the question, Blessed Up P. All right, let's go touch on another game. What game looks interesting to talk about here? Okay, so I found an interesting statistic yesterday through my research about this Bears and Lions game. All right, so okay, the Lions allowed the second most receptions to wide receivers last season. DJ Moore, last I saw, his receptions were listed at 4.5, and he's gone over that in 7 out of 7 career games against the Lions. His receiving yards are listed at 50.5, and he's also gone over that in 7 out of 7 career games against the Lions.
Damn.
That was probably the most interesting statistic that I saw yesterday through my research. And, the Lions last season, they allowed the most receiving yards to wide receivers. They allowed this, I already mentioned it, but the second most receptions allowed to wide receivers. One would think that the Bears would be playing from behind in this game. And the Bears ranked 8th in passing play percentage last season. So relative to the other teams in the league, the Bears were calling a much higher percentage of passing plays than the other teams throughout the league. So I think this is a good spot, for DJ Moore or even Odunze. But the Lions last season did a great job defending against the rush. So if last season looks like anything like this season, I would think that their biggest vulnerability is going to be that pass defense. Now I know they're healthier this season. I know they were dealing with injuries, but still, I would think that would be where they're most vulnerable at. And then JB, any thoughts on this game? Chicago at Detroit.
I did not know the stats. That's really interesting. DJ Moore. I like the Bears. Eagles, Bears. Blessed Up P said Seahawks, Steelers. We got somebody asking Hurts or Herbert today.
Hurts or Herbert? I didn't really look into the Chargers game. I think they play on Monday night, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they play the Raiders. In Los Angeles, I believe.
I like Hurts's rushing capabilities, man.
Is it really in Vegas? How would it be in Vegas? It is in Vegas. Wow, yeah, Vegas Monday night. They should have fight there, dude. Who should I put in my flex? Turn Tracy McEvans, Luka, or Keon Coleman. Tampa's playing Houston. Houston's got a pretty good defense. They're away as well, being Houston. I like Tyrone Tracy. Trade Zach Ertz or Devontae Adams. Probably Ertz. Steelers win today over Steelers. Or Seattle. Probably. Yeah, Steelers win. I think Steelers win that one. Smoke them like 2 trains.
I do just want to mention real quick how much, I think Jahmyr Gibbs and or David Montgomery could do good today for Detroit. Chicago was not good at defending against that run last season. Detroit was very good at running the ball. I know that Detroit struggled running the ball against Green Bay in week 1. But I think this is a good bounce back spot, man. Gibbs has had a touchdown in 3 out of 4 career games against the Bears. But Montgomery, last I saw, his rushing yards over under 45.5. He's gone over that in 3 out of 3 career games against the Bears. He's had 66 plus rushing yards in all 3 matchups. I think those guys are definitely worth looking at. But I know that you guys wanted to talk a little bit about that Pittsburgh Steelers and Seattle Seahawks game. JB, what are your thoughts on this game?
Steelers. I don't see any chance for Seattle. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I just don't see it happening for them on that day.
I think Pittsburgh has a pretty decent rushing advantage.
Yeah.
Really, because
Their
Seattle
passing game too is very slow as well.
Seattle just wasn't good at running the ball last season, and Pittsburgh's rushing yards allowed per game was above average. Pittsburgh did a good job last season, but in regards to the passing game, I mean, yeah, it's tough with a new quarterback. Wilson and Fields were the quarterbacks for Pittsburgh last season, so Pittsburgh ranked 26th in passing yards per game last season. I would think that could go up with Aaron Rodgers there. It
could.
Now Seattle was vulnerable. Looks like they allowed the 5th most receiving touchdowns to wide receivers last season. Kind of just looking for some other vulnerabilities here with Seattle. Receiving yards allowed to running backs allowed the 10th most. But I hear Seattle's defense, man, is supposed to be pretty good. I like Seattle in this one.
Really?
But, Pittsburgh, they do have some advantages against Seattle, but I like how this game's tough to call for me. It's tough to analyze it because there are 2 different quarterbacks starting for each team this season. You know what I mean? And all we have is to look at last year's data. So it really just comes down to like how much you guys think of Sam Darnold, how much you guys think of Aaron Rodgers, how much you guys think about these defenses. I don't really have a whole lot to say on this game. What I will say is that Rodgers needs 245 more passing yards to move into 6th place for career passing yards leader. To move ahead of Phillip Rivers. So if you were thinking about Rodgers' passing yards today, he may, have an extra chip on his shoulder and try to get that, considering he needs 245 more yards to get on.
Not even that. It's also DK Metcalf's get back game, his revenge game. So that's got big implications on it as well. I just like Pittsburgh, man. I think Pittsburgh really the defense, though. Pittsburgh's defense is a little sus, you know what I mean? Shout out to coach, shout out to Gremlin. Man, I just don't. I don't know. I don't see. I don't see them having an answer for DK and Rodgers. You see Rodgers having more than 15.5 fantasy points. Bears.
15.5 fantasy points. Just depends on the scoring, but I mean, just like the standard scoring and stuff. I really like to look at it's tough. It's really tough for me to analyze this game once again because I'm just looking at last year's data. I really think that there could be some other guys that have better takes about this game than I do because I really like to look at statistics, and it's tough whenever you have two new quarterbacks for these teams. All we have is looking at last week. But, last season, if we're looking at last season's data, Pittsburgh wasn't good in the red zone. They were not good at converting in the red zone. They were below average at red zone attempts per game. Seattle was they were good at holding teams to field goals or turnovers. So, it's tough for me to make that call, man. I would have to lean, probably towards him going over that just because of the milestone that he can reach today and it being DK Metcalf's revenge game.
Yeah, I think it'd be. I got Pittsburgh in that. Yeah, I think he's gonna go long. Blessed up P. Yeah.
Oh, you're good. Blessed up P. Oh, DJ Moore, blessed up P. DJ Moore had gone in 7 out of 7 career games against Detroit. He has had 5+ receptions. Also, his receiving yards are listed. Last I saw, were listed at 50.5. He's gone over that in 7 out of 7 career games against the Lions. All right. There's some other good data behind that too. When we're talking about last season, how Detroit allowed the most receiving yards to wide receivers, the second most receptions to wide receivers, and the Bears called a high percentage of passing plays last season. They are projected to be trailing in this game. I think he's definitely worth looking at, and possibly Odunze as well. Flowers. I think Flowers is interesting today. Somebody said Tyreek or Flowers. I think Flowers is kind of interesting today. And I'll tell you why here in a second. Now, it's tough for me to play wide receivers.
ETN.
It's tough for me to play a wide receiver in this Baltimore game for Baltimore for a couple of reasons. One is because Baltimore is expected to win this game by 13+ points. And so typically when a team is ahead by a lot, they don't necessarily need to pass the ball a whole lot. Also, Baltimore called the second highest percentage of rushing plays last season. So, but Cleveland's rush defense last season was that they were vulnerable to that. Their pass defense was better, and relative to the other teams in the league. Passing yards allowed per game, they ranked 14th. Rushing yards allowed per game, they ranked 21st. So really their biggest defensive vulnerability last season was rush, defending against that rush, which is exactly what Baltimore likes to do. But I could see Zay Flowers having a decent game here, and here's why: is because Cleveland allowed the most yards per completion two opposing teams last season. And when we look at yards per catch in the NFL in 2024, Zay Flowers, I believe, was high on this list. Okay. He was ranked 23rd best in the NFL at yards per catch last season, second best on the Ravens. I would be more looking for Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
Bateman, if I were looking for a Baltimore wide receiver, Bateman ranked fifth best in the NFL last season in yards per catch, and ranked first on the Ravens. So I'd probably, I think the question was also like Tyreek Hill with Miami, right? New England last season. I'm just seeing how they defended against the pass. They were above average in passing yards allowed, but they ranked 22nd in opponent yards per completion. We know Tyreek Hill is capable of, picking up some big gains. So, I mean, I would in Miami called a pretty high percentage of passing plays last season. I would probably have to lean towards Tyreek Hill in that one over Zay Flowers. Yeah, no, I get it, blessed up, Pete. Yeah, the Dolphins definitely got to show me something too. I would be leaning towards Miami getting this win today. Really because of the fact that they had a slight third down conversion advantage last season over against the Patriots. So, the Patriots were not good at third downs last season, and Miami was really good at holding their opponents on third downs to punting or field goals. Also, Miami has a good red zone advantage in this game in regards to red zone conversion and red zone attempts. I see that Miami has a slight sack on the quarterback advantage here, a slight passing advantage. I see a lot of advantages from Miami in this game, but I understand, not feeling confident in Miami quite yet.
Yeah, I'm not confident in Miami at all.
Let me see. I'm trying to get back to the comments here. Dobbins or Sampson? Were there any comments that you wanted to address?
No, I already addressed the comment.
Somebody that I was kind of thinking about. We'll move on to like a different game here. Somebody that I was thinking about was I would be keeping my eyes to see if Wan'Dale Robinson is out today for the Giants. If he is out, right now I'm seeing that he's still questionable. If he's out, man, I like Darius Slayton in this game, wide receiver. But I like him even more if Wan'Dale Robinson is out. And there's a few, of course, there's a few reasons why I like Slayton, or I got my eyes on him. And it's one of the reasons is Dallas was somewhat vulnerable to defending against wide receivers in regards to receiving yards and receiving touchdowns and receptions allowed to wide receivers last season. The Giants called a high percentage of passing plays last season. I know they have a different quarterback in right now, but Dallas also allowed they ranked 25th in opponent yards per completion. So when teams were completing the ball, a pass against Dallas, they were picking up some pretty big gains. And Slayton ranked best on the Giants last season in yards per catch and 20th best in the NFL, right there with Justin Jefferson and Brian Thomas Jr. So,
wow.
Yeah, I'd be, I'm kind of interested in Slayton here today in this Dallas game. Do you have any thoughts about this Cowboys Giants game, man? I am a Dallas Cowboys fan, unfortunately. And I'm a little bit nervous about this game, to be honest with you. Russell Wilson has a 5-1 regular season career record against the Cowboys. And then Dak looks like he has a 13-2 career record against the Giants. So both of these quarterbacks are in, favorable situations today, but something has to give. I think the Giants can keep it close. What are your thoughts, JB?
I think Dallas takes this. I don't think the Giants offense has what it takes. Russell Wilson is not it. Morgan. I don't know. I picked Dallas last week. I liked Dallas last week as well. I think. They didn't fumble that ball. They win that game.
Yeah.
They don't have that break. I think they win that game.
Yeah, they almost, knocked off Philly last week. Now I'm not sure if Bland, the cornerback for Dallas, played last week or not. I think he did, but he's not playing today for the Cowboys. So that's a blow to this Cowboys defense. But somebody who I was looking into for this game, guys, was really Javonte Williams. He was the leader in carries last week for the Cowboys. He was the leader in receptions, receiving yards, and targets out of all Dallas Cowboy running backs. And rushing yards allowed to running backs last season, or just in general. The Giants were well below average. They ranked 24th. The Cowboys were too. They ranked 28th in opponent rushing yards. Yeah, both of these rush defenses were bad last season. The Cowboys actually ranked 29th in rushing yards allowed per game. The Giants ranked 26th in rushing yards allowed per game. Like any running back in this game, I would have to lean towards both of the running backs to do good in this game, and Tracy, even maybe Scatterboo.
Get the boo. Let's get back.
Oh.
So Ted McMillan or Odunze. We kind of talked about Odunze earlier. I think Odunze is in a great spot today against, the pass defense that was weak for the Lions last season. But Carolina, Ted McMillan, he's in a decent spot here today too, Carolina did call a high percentage of passing plays last season. They're projected to be trailing in this game, which may force them to pass the ball. Arizona, more about average in passing yards allowed per game last season. They ranked 15th. And then, I'd be looking at maybe receptions for wide receivers for Carolina today, simply because the Arizona Cardinals allowed the seventh most receptions to wide receivers. But looks like Arizona was just about average in defending against the wide receiver position in regards to receiving yards allowed. And then they did allow the sixth least amount of touchdowns to wide receivers last season. So I'd definitely have to be leaning towards Odunze in that regard. But since we're on this Carolina game, so at first glance, when I saw this game last night and I was doing my research, I thought about James Conner. I instantly thought about James Conner. Carolina last season, they allowed the most rushing yards per game. They allowed the most rushing yards per rush attempt. So instantly, I was gravitated towards James Conner. But there's somebody else in this backfield for Arizona that I have my eyes on. That's Trey Benson. Last week he had 8 carries compared to the 12 that James Conner had. Trey Benson averaged more yards per carry than Conner last week. Trey Benson actually made a lot of got a pretty good amount of yards just for the amount of carries that he had. And the fact that Carolina, allowed the most rushing yards per attempt last season makes me really, give Trey Benson a look in this game. Let me try to see if I can get some more questions. Pickens, Key Johnson. The Jets may pull off an upset, is what Nas is saying. Yeah, I was thinking about the Jets too. Let me go to that game. That's a game that I'm personally looking forward to today. Really because, man, I like Justin Fields. I thought he looked great last week. I thought he looked comfortable against a solid Pittsburgh defense. Oh, you don't think Pittsburgh's defense is solid?
No, it's not. It's not right now.
So in this game, I would, I think James Cook is definitely worth looking into in this game. James Cook, Buffalo called a high percentage of rushing plays last season. The Jets, though, man, they did pretty decent at preventing rushing yards allowed per game last season. They ranked 17th. They did much better against the pass in regards to containing the passing yards allowed. They did really good. They ranked 3rd in that aspect. So, I'm thinking Buffalo is going to have to get it done on the ground. Now, Buffalo, I am seeing that they have a nice sacks advantage, red zone attempts, red zone conversion, 3rd down advantage. But I think James Cook could have a good game here. Breece Hall, I think, could have a good game as well, though, for the Jets. And I'm not necessarily talking about his rushing capabilities. I'm more talking about his pass catching abilities, because last season Buffalo allowed the most receiving yards to running backs. They allowed the 2nd most receiving touchdowns to running backs, and they allowed the 3rd most receptions to running backs. Wow. So I think Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall is definitely somebody to, if and the Jets are projected to be trailing in this game. They called a very high percentage of pass plays last season. They ranked 4th in passing play percentage. So, if I'm the Jets today, I'm really looking to dump the ball to Breece Hall. See if we can answer some more questions here. I know we have a lot of questions coming in. Smith or Pickens at flex? We talked about A.J. Brown. I would have to lean towards A.J. Brown more than Devontae Smith today. I'm not necessarily too high on Eagles wide receivers really because they called a very high percentage of rushing plays last season. And we kind of talked about that game already, but I did think, A.J. Brown was a pretty decent play if you were going with an Eagles wide receiver. I'd have to lean towards Brown. And then Pickens, I'd probably have to lean towards Pickens.
Yeah.
Although the Giants, the Giants were about average, it looks like. Giants were about average in regards to receiving yards allowed to wide receivers last season, touchdowns allowed. They had a pretty decent pass defense last year, and but I just like Pickens' situation a little bit more today than the other guy we were just talking about, Smith. Keon Coleman, anytime touchdown, is what somebody was saying.
Yeah. What's up, Bando?
Jets.
Yeah, I like it. No. Well,
I liked Keon Coleman last week.
yeah, I don't like this week. You're going against Sauce Gardner and the Jets defense. I think Keon because they're the number one, maybe two.
Let me let's look at another game here. I talked about how much I like Gibbs and or Montgomery today for the Lions. Let's see, Cincinnati and Jacksonville. So Cincinnati has a huge passing advantage in this game against Jacksonville, and they loved to pass the ball last season as they ranked second in passing play percentage. They ranked first in passing yards per game last season, and the Jaguars ranked 32nd in passing yards allowed per game. This situation doesn't get much better for Cincinnati's passing attack. Also worth noting, the Jaguars ranked 29th in opponent yards per completion in 2024, and Jamar Chase ranked first on Cincinnati in yards per catch and 34th in the NFL in yards per catch, while Yossi Vash ranked second on Cincinnati and 38th in the NFL in yards per catch. The Jaguars also allowed the third most receiving yards to wide receivers and tied for the seventh most receptions allowed to wide receivers. And those weren't the only leaks. Those weren't the only leaks in the Jaguars' pass defense either. They allowed the second most receiving yards to running backs and the second most receptions allowed to running backs, which gives Chase Brown some upside here. They also allowed the fourth most receiving touchdowns to tight ends. So if you like a tight end today for Cincinnati, you got that going for you. Now, Cincinnati's pass defense was vulnerable last season, specifically to quarterback touchdown passes. So if you like Trevor Lawrence, touchdown passes today, you got that going for you. But Cincinnati's pass defense was extremely vulnerable to receiving yards, touchdowns, and receptions allowed to tight ends last season, which I think really gives Brenton Strange a huge boost today for Jacksonville. Both of these rush defenses were poor last year as well. I think either team could have success through the running game, but I'm not sure if either team will try to zone in on attacking the run. Etienne and Brown were the clear number one running backs for their teams this season in week one, but I would give more upside to Chase Brown than Etienne because of Jacksonville's vulnerability to running back receiving yards and receptions. I like Cincinnati in this game. Do you have any thoughts about this game, JB?
No, I agree. I like Cincinnati as well. Your analysis pretty much covered all of that game right there.
I could see this game going over. Last I saw, it was at 48.5. Cincinnati was 11-6 to the over last season. Jacksonville was 9-8 to the over last season. Cincinnati was 5-2 to the over as a home favorite last season. Two poor defenses, and I think both of these offenses are capable of doing some good things. So, Jonathan Taylor or Breece Hall? I kind of like Breece Hall. Predictions of halftime predictions for the. Can I get a response for y'all? Predictions of halftime predictions for Cowboys and Ravens game, like first half. I'm not the greatest at like first half stuff. But what I would do is just kind of look at the history of how the Cowboys were and the Ravens were in the first half last season. That's just not something that I'm going to do on the fly right here, right now. Jonathan Taylor or Breece Hall. We already talked about Breece Hall a little bit. I think he's in a pretty decent spot here today, considering Baltimore's vulnerability to receiving backs, or not Buffalo's vulnerability to receiving backs. And then, when we're looking at Jonathan Taylor for the Colts,
They play the Broncos.
Right. And the Broncos have a great defense. And rushing yards allowed per game last season, the Broncos ranked 5th best in that category. I would definitely have to be leaning towards Breece Hall more so than Jonathan Taylor. And just, looking back at last year too, we have to talk about red zone opportunities and red zone, conversion rates when we're talking about these fantasy players. I think that's a big factor. And Indianapolis, we're below average last season in red zone conversion rate. So when Indianapolis did enter the red zone last season, they weren't particularly good at scoring touchdowns, and nobody allowed fewer touchdowns when a team entered the red zone than Denver last season. So that has me worried for Jonathan Taylor today. Also, Denver did a great job at preventing teams from entering the red zone against them last season. They ranked 6th best. The Colts didn't have a whole lot of red zone opportunities. They ranked 20th, so they were below average in, giving themselves opportunity in the red zone. I see a lot of advantages just, looking at this game. I see a lot of advantages for Denver.
Not even like taking in stats or anything like that into effect. I almost pick these guys to win. I almost like the Colts over the Broncos. Yeah, the game last week, what they did, Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor, and the way that the Broncos struggled against the Titans last week.
Yeah, no. I think that's a fair prediction, man. I slept on the Colts last week. I was leaning towards Miami getting that victory, and the Colts really impressed me last week, or maybe it was a little bit of Miami disappointing me, maybe a little bit of both. I think we're really about to see what this Indianapolis team is about here today, and I just think that they come up short. I know that we have guys in the Not Move podcast or a guy that was high on Daniel Jones. So that makes me a little worried here.
Yeah, Southgate's a big guy on Daniel Jones. I mean, the last time that Daniel Jones had the reason why he got paid is because Saquon Barkley was having his breakout year, and Daniel Jones had a good year that year. So Jonathan Taylor can have a good year. Daniel Jones will probably have a good year as well, which means the Colts have a good year.
Yeah, I just, I think Daniel Jones is going to struggle in this game. And I think something that we have to talk about with Daniel Jones, one of the first things that comes to mind is rushing yards allowed per game to quarterbacks for the Broncos last season. Looks like Broncos were ranked 11th best in preventing quarterbacks from rushing the ball on them in regards to yardage allowed. So, I think that's one of Daniel Jones's strengths is rushing, and the fact that Denver has an above average, at least last season, above average quarterback rush prevention is detrimental to Daniel Jones in this game. Also, if last season's any indication, Denver ranked first in sacks per game. Indianapolis did a good job at protecting their quarterbacks last season, but I can see Denver getting some sacks in this game as well. I just see a lot of slight advantages for Denver here today. I'm not gonna freak out about last week's performance against Tennessee. I think Tennessee is kind of a decent team, but we'll see today.
Oh, they are. So wicked. Last year they had that number 2 defense.
Then let's go find another game or answer a question or something here.
Next question.
Talk about the Eagles game.
Ricky Hatton just passed away. I don't know who that is.
I was looking at. So here's what I was kind of doing earlier yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at teams that were good at converting. I know a lot of people like the anytime touchdowns and whatnot, touchdown scores in general. I was looking at the best red zone conversion rates from last season against the worst opponent red zone conversion rates. A team that looked interesting to me were the Bengals. The Bengals ranked, they were good in the red zone, converting touchdowns in the red zone last season, and Jacksonville was below average. Also, Cincinnati was above average in red zone scoring attempts. Jacksonville allowed a lot of red zone scoring attempts. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for the Bengals to score some touchdowns today. I think the same thing for the Broncos. They ranked 9th in red zone conversion rate last season. Indianapolis ranked 10th worst. And then red zone scoring attempts. Denver was about average, but Indianapolis allowed the 5th most opponent red zone scoring attempts. So I think, if you like Bronco players to score a touchdown today, I think you can, you got that going for you. And then Baltimore, against Cleveland. No other team was better at converting touchdowns in the red zone last season than the Baltimore Ravens. Cleveland allowed a lot allowed a lot of touchdowns whenever teams did enter the red zone, and they the thing about Cleveland, though, is that they did pretty decently at preventing teams from entering the red zone against them. But I think like a question to ask yourself also is, we talk about these red zone scoring attempts and red zone this and red zone that. But what about the big plays, the explosive plays, the 30-yard touchdowns, the 40-yard touchdowns? I came across this guy on X, formerly known as Twitter, who listed the number of plays that a team had last year that gained 25 plus yards, and Baltimore was ranked first on that list.
Wow. I don't doubt it.
And then opponent yards per completion last season, Cleveland ranked worse. So I think if Baltimore does air the ball out today, they could see a long touchdown pass. And I'm going to say it's going to be Bateman if they do that.
What is Dave Flowers' career's been against him? Has he usually gone off on deep passes?
We can look at Zay Flowers, his game log. He hasn't been in the league too long. Let's see if he's played Cleveland before. I mean, his last game against Cleveland, he had 115 receiving yards, no touchdowns, 7 receptions. And then the game before that, he didn't do so well, but he only had 2 targets. That's a concern. I'm going to say it again. That's one of the concerns for me taking a wide receiver for Baltimore today is that they really do like to run the ball. And how much are they really going to need to throw the ball today?
Yeah, with them with Baltimore and their run game, man, and Lamar, they won't have to really do too much. I don't think. I don't know. You know me. I'll pick Cleveland every once in a while. It ain't that time. I was telling the guys yesterday. If you look, Cleveland when they usually win and they usually beat their rival, it's mid-late year. It's not usually beginning of the year.
Yeah. And I'm looking at Zay Flowers, his longest reception in these games against Cleveland. It looks like he's played about 4 games against them throughout his career. He had a reception of 29 yards. That was his longest in his most recent game, 29 yards, 0 receiving touchdowns. And then it was 12 yards, 0 receiving touchdowns. 43 yards, 0 receiving touchdowns. And 18 yards, 0 receiving touchdowns. So he doesn't have the greatest history, at least in regards to touchdowns scored against Cleveland. He hasn't had one in his career out of 4 games. I'd be looking at Bateman once again. I'm not saying that he's not going to do it. He could, and he could have a good game, but I'd be looking more towards Bateman in this one. How do you have the Titans over the Rams? Somebody was saying. I think the key for the Rams in this game is rushing with Williams. Tennessee was not a good rush defense last season, but the Rams were not either. Both of these defenses struggled at containing the run last season in regards to yardage allowed per game, passing yards allowed per game. There was nobody better in the business than Tennessee. And then the Rams ranked 11th best. So, I'm thinking whoever runs the ball better here is going to be the winner. And I could see Tennessee. I could see Pollard having a good game here. But also Williams on the flip side here. I do see that the Rams have a big red zone attempts per game advantage, a slight red zone conversion rate advantage, and a big sacks on the quarterback advantage. I think this game can be a little pretty close, to be honest with you.
What? Cleveland and
Rams and Titans.
Rams and Titans. Yeah. I actually picked the upset, I think.
I could see it, man. I don't feel like confident enough to like absolutely be certain about one side or the other here. I see some positive things for both of these teams. It's a tough decision for me to make, but I'm gonna have to just lean with the Rams here with their veteran quarterback against the unproven, in my eyes, the unproven Cam Ward. I've heard some people say some good things about Cam Ward, though.
Oh yeah, he did really, really well. I mean, I don't know about really well, but he looked good. I from what I've seen and from what I know, A-Train's seen, we both like it. We like what we've seen.
Yeah. I got so many different. Pick one: Sutton, Pickens, Purcell.
Pick two, sit one on that.
I'm not super high on Pickens today. Who does San Francisco play? New Orleans.
Here's the deal: it has to be Pearsall because San Fran only has Pearsall. They have nobody else right now. Everybody else is injured.
Well, here's the thing, though, too, man, is that Brock Purdy's out of this game for San Francisco. So it's Mac Jones.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like that's the. I don't know, man. That's the best wide receiver at that point. That's what's his face tight end? Kittle, he's out. What's his face? The other wide receiver, Ayuk, he's out. Chris McCaffrey, it's gonna be Chris McCaffrey and Pearsall today with Mac Jones.
I thought I saw they had another receiver.
Security blankets.
I thought I saw they had another questionable receiver earlier when I was looking. Jennings.
It says Pearsall and Bjorn will get after it today. He's a San Fran fan. Sorry, buddy. Pick two: Breece Hall, James Cook, Abuka. Breece Hall, James Cook. I say. What do you say?
I like how Breece Hall and James Cook line up today. Abuka, though, man, he looked good in week 1, and Tampa Bay is going up against. I think they play. Do they play? They play tomorrow.
Says Cook and Abuka. That's probably.
The Texans allowed the second most receiving touchdowns to wide receivers last season. Tampa Bay was good at scoring in the red zone last season as well. Tampa Bay had a good amount of 25-plus yard plays. And, man, I do like Abuka, man. I'd probably have to lean towards Cook and Abuka.
Yeah, that's what Otis says, too. Otis is that fantasy sports cat from that move, yo.
Yeah. Oh, no, I've listened to Otis before, man. He's very knowledgeable, so.
Yeah. Dude, I just seen something come over across the ticker. It said that the Ravens revealed they were gonna draft Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, but when they called him whatever, he told me he didn't want to be drafted. He wanted to go elsewhere. Probably he just didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson. I mean, I wouldn't either.
What other games do we have here that we haven't covered, or any other questions? DK or Mecca?
Can't answer what one.
Who did Seattle play again? We were just talking about that game. Pittsburgh or something? They play Pittsburgh, and we're talking about DK Metcalf.
Could be. What are you talking about? Dom.
I don't necessarily like, DK. Yeah, he's with Pitt now. DK Metcalf with the Steelers. Seattle allowed the 9th least amount of receiving yards to wide receivers last season, which makes me a little hesitant about DK Metcalf today. But they did allow the 5th most receiving touchdowns to wide receivers. But Seattle wasn't great at getting into the red zone last season. I know that they had a excuse me. I know they had a different quarterback last season, but I don't think this was an upgrade necessarily. And if it was, I don't think it's a big upgrade getting Sam Darnold. So I keep getting them flipped. Aaron Rodgers, still different quarterbacks last season. Pittsburgh last season in the red zone. I got that mixed up. My bad. Red zone conversion rate. They didn't do good at converting touchdowns in the red zone. They were a little below average in red zone attempts per game. I'm not personally. I know it's a revenge game for DK Metcalf and everything. But
Yeah.
I'm not super high on him today.
Really?
Yeah, I'm thinking Pittsburgh has a better chance of running the ball. They should have a pretty balanced attack, I would think, to be honest with you. He could do good, but I'm just not super high on him today. Emeka Egbuka should be a must start, says Otis. Yeah. Higgins, I really like I was just talking about Metcalf a little bit. I could see him doing good. I think Higgins is in a great spot here today against Jacksonville, who were terrible last season at defending against the pass. No better team was better at passing the ball in regards to yards per game last season than Cincinnati. No team allowed more yards per game through the air than Jacksonville. Jacksonville allowed the 4th most yards per completion last season. And when we look at Cincinnati Bengals yards per catch in 2024, Jamar Chase ranked 1st on this Bengals team. And then it was Yossi Vash and then Higgins. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity today for Jacksonville to get into the red zone. And I think there's going to be I like Cincinnati getting touchdowns today. So I'm not necessarily as high on Pittsburgh scoring a bunch of touchdowns. I definitely have to lean towards Higgins. Also, I do just want to mention, guys, that like Cincinnati's passing play percentage last season ranked 2nd. So there was one other team that called more passing plays than Cincinnati last season. So they were a very pass-heavy team. In Pittsburgh, I don't know what their passing play percentages was in week 1, but they called a higher percentage of rushing plays relative to the other teams in the league. So, I really like Cincinnati. At least their touchdown scoring opportunities and yards pickups. I mean, Chase Brown, even I could see having a good game. What were you saying, JB? Sorry.
Somebody asked, what do you think about our thoughts on Kelce?
What are your thoughts on Kelce, JB? I mean,
I think it's going to be more. I don't know. I think
he's going to have to definitely contribute. You know what I mean? He's definitely going to be
probably a focal point with Worthy and Rice out. You know, I think they're going to try to go.
I don't know. I think it's going to be kind of personal, even though it's not the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a little personal for them guys.
You know, JB, I like to talk about statistics a lot, but I really like doing co-hosting with you because you watch the games. Not saying that I don't, but you have a good feel for what's going to happen. And I look way more into the analytics of it. So I don't think analytics are everything. I think if you're feeling positively about a certain player or team and the statistics line up with it, those are probably the best plays that can be made. The best decisions that can be made are probably when your gut is telling you one thing, just how you see things, and then the statistics align with that. What I will say about the Philadelphia Eagles tight end defense last season, the Philadelphia Eagles allowed the fewest receiving yards to tight ends, which makes me hesitant about Travis Kelce today. They allowed the third fewest receptions to tight ends as well. In fact, I would be more interested in targeting, and we talked about this earlier, maybe like Calcaterra or who was it? Granson, either tight end for Philadelphia. I'd probably have to lean towards Granson because the Kansas City Chiefs were extremely vulnerable to receiving yards and receptions allowed to tight ends last season.
Yep.
I think the Chiefs, the biggest vulnerability when I'm looking at all these statistics about what happened last season, the biggest vulnerability that I see in the Eagles defense were receiving yards allowed. It was actually rushing yards allowed to running backs. Rushing and receiving yards allowed to running backs, and they were still very good at defending against that last season. I think if the Chiefs went, I think the key to the success for the Chiefs today is utilize those running backs and zone in on Jalen Hurts rushing the ball, because the Chiefs last season allowed the 7th most rushing yards to quarterbacks. And Hurts specifically has good history running against the Chiefs. The Eagles are very good converting in the red zone and getting into the red zone. So I think the Chiefs have their hands full today. I did mention that statistically, I see a lot of advantages for the Eagles in this game, but I'm going to lean towards the Chiefs getting this win. I don't know how. I don't know, I just have a feeling that the Chiefs are going to get this game today. But statistically, feelings aside, the Eagles look like the better team in this matchup. What other game have we not covered? San Francisco and New Orleans, we kind of touched on that a little bit. Not a game that I'm really interested in talking about a whole lot. Let me look at – oh, by the way, guys, I didn't really see any big weather concerns today. It looked like there could be some rain in the Dolphins game. Patriots at Dolphins. There's a few storms around, is what they're saying on rotogrinders.com. Rams and Tennessee, chance for some showers. There's not a lot of rain overall. And then the Kansas City-Philadelphia game, they're saying that it's going to be the windiest game of the week. But it's only going to be about 10 miles per hour, which shouldn't have any substantial impact on the game. So overall, Colts and Broncos, yeah, let's get into that a little bit more. Overall, looks pretty, looks all right in regards to the weather in the NFL this week. Yeah, let's look in that Colts and Broncos game. I think the Broncos, have a decent opportunity of scoring touchdowns today. Blessed up, P. And there's a few reasons for that. One, they were good. They were above average at getting into the red zone last season, at converting in the red zone last season. Indianapolis were below average in allowing opponents to convert in the red zone. Indianapolis allowed teams to enter the red zone at a very high rate. Denver was about average at getting into the red zone, but Denver also has a big third down advantage in this game, I feel like. They ranked 18th in third down conversion rate last season, which is about average, but Indianapolis allowed the fourth highest opponent third down conversion rate. We know how important third downs are at extending drives, right? So I think Denver, has an advantage there. And Indianapolis, in regards to rushing yards allowed per game, below average last season. Passing yards allowed per game, below average last season. I think I touched on let's just go look to see where Indianapolis is most vulnerable. Looking back at last season, receptions allowed to running backs, allowed the 9th most. So I don't know who the pass catcher is for the Broncos, with the running backs, but that's somebody to look at today. Indianapolis allowed the 7th most receiving yards to tight ends last season, the 3rd most receiving touchdowns to tight ends last season, the 7th most receptions allowed to tight ends last season. So if you like, a Bronco tight end today, Evan Ingram looks like he's playing. I can't confirm that, but it looks like. Let me just do a little search here real quick.
Right, he is in here. Give to CMC, to Henry, 2 touchdowns.
And will he be limited too if he does play? I think Bronco tight end could be beneficial in this game. Gibbs, Southgate, Gibbs 2 touchdowns, CMC, okay, and Henry. I like Gibbs and Henry. I don't know necessarily how good or bad CMC is going to do today. I think a lot of people that have come through here like CMC. And when we look at, he could be a pass catching back, right? The Saints last season allowed a lot of passing yards per game. They weren't extremely vulnerable to receiving yards allowed to running backs and touchdowns and receptions allowed to running backs last season. But rushing yards allowed per game, they ranked 30th. And then rush yards per attempt last season, they ranked 30th. I want to look at rushing yards per attempt. and check to see. Just look something up real quick. He only played 4 games last season, McCaffrey, so it's tough to, look at data for that. I'm going to have to more so look at 2023 yards per rush attempt for McCaffrey. And 2023 ranked 5th best. I can see McCaffrey having a really good day. I think those are good calls there, Southgate. Now, San Francisco, one other thing that we got to think about is the red zone conversion rate. Red zone conversion rate, I mean, I've seen better situations, like in that Baltimore game, I think it was, the Cincinnati game, the Denver red zone advantage. But with San Francisco, they did okay at converting in the red zone last season. And New Orleans did decent at preventing it. Same thing with the attempts. So I think I'm higher on Gibbs and Derrick Henry today more than I am McCaffrey, but I think McCaffrey can still have a good game. Let me get back to the questions if we have any here. Oh, you just blew that up. I got Texans to beat the Titans. Somebody says Chiefs are going to beat the Broncos. AFC West. How's it going, Ryan?
Offense going to run through CMC, no Purdy.
Uh-huh.
That's what I think. Purdy or CMC and Pearson.
Yeah, and that's definitely something to take into consideration too. Do you have another? Is there another show coming up here soon, JB? What time is that other show? Next show?
11.
Eastern.
No, 12 Eastern.
Okay. Cool. So we still got like about an hour here. So I want to just kind of read off what I have here about this. I'm going to bore you guys with some information here. All right. So what I have is Chicago's head coach Ben Johnson facing his former team, Detroit, today, where he was once offensive coordinator. Detroit was an elite passing team last season as they ranked 2nd in passing yards per game. What's impressive about that is that they ranked 25th in passing play percentage last season and still finished 2nd in passing yards per game. So relative to the other teams in the league, they were calling a high percentage of rushing plays last season. And then after losing to the Packers last week, they currently rank 6th in passing play percentage. I think part of that is probably because they got behind early in that game. The Bears ranked 17th in passing yards allowed per game last season and did a great job at limiting the Vikings quarterback in their week 1 fourth quarter collapse. But I don't feel like that's a true test for this Bears pass defense. The Bears allowed the 2nd most passing yards per completion last season. Jameson Williams not only ranked 1st on the Lions in yards per catch in 2024, but he ranked 3rd in the entire NFL in yards per catch. So I think, Williams today for Detroit is somebody to keep an eye on. Also, Laporta. I'm going to read a little bit more of what I got here. The Bears allowed the 8th least amount of receiving yards to wide receivers last season, but they did allow the 6th most receiving yards to tight ends. So this is still, elaborating on Williams or Laporta here. but just keep that in mind, that the Bears were a little bit more vulnerable to that tight end position in regards to receiving yards allowed than the wide receiver position. And I can't really stress how much Gibbs and Montgomery how good they look today. Just in regards to rushing, the rushing advantage. I think it's a huge advantage for Detroit today. Gibbs and Montgomery. Detroit ranked 3rd in rushing yards per game last season. They called a very high percentage of rushing plays. Chicago ranked 27th in rushing yards allowed per game last season. And the Chicago Bears allowed the 2nd most rushing yards to running backs last season, the most touchdowns allowed to running backs last season. Nobody got into the red zone more than Detroit last season. And they were good at converting in that red zone. Chicago allowed their opponents to enter the red zone a whole lot last season. So, I think definitely. But, for some of you that may have missed what I was talking about earlier, one of the most interesting statistics that I've come across in a long time is DJ Moore having 5+ receptions today. Last I saw, his line was listed at 4.5. And he's gone over that in 7 out of 7 career games against the Lions. His receiving yards last I saw were listed at 50.5, and he's gone over that in 7 out of 7 career games against the Lions. The Lions were vulnerable to passing yards allowed per game last season. I know they may be a little bit healthier this season, but they were really good against the run in 2024, and they struggled against that pass. They allowed the most receiving yards to wide receivers last season, the 2nd most receptions allowed to wide receivers in 2024. So I think, the Bears, man, the Bears could get some passing yardage on them. Williams has had at least 256 passing yards in both of his meetings against the Lions in 2024. And the Lions allowed the 7th most passing yards to quarterbacks last season. So, my first look is DJ Moore for that Bears aerial attack, and then it would be Odunze. And if you're looking for Gibbs anytime touchdown, he's had a touchdown in 3 out of 4 career games against the Bears. Let's see if Ben Johnson. Miami and New England take the under. Somebody is saying, yeah, let's look into it a little bit. Thank you for the question. Miami and New England. Miami has won the last 8 out of 10 games, but that's not talking about the over-under. So New England last season, they were 3-5 to the over as a road underdog, but they were 11-6 in all games to the over. So New England did a very good job in getting over the projected amount of points, the total score points last season, 11-6. Miami was 8-9 to the over, but as a home favorite, they were 5-2 as a home favorite last season. So more times than not, their games went over when they were a home favorite last season. I heard there was some storm potential, some rain potential in that game. And something else that we can look at real quick is the Dolphins versus Patriots history between these two teams. How many times in the recent past have they had 44 or more points scored? 1 of 1, 2 of 1, 2 out of 2, 3-2, 3-3, 4-3, 4-4, 4-5, 4-6. So out of the last 10 games, 4 games have gone over the 43.5 projected. Last I saw, over under was 43.5. 4 games out of the last 10 have gone over that amount. 6 have gone under. So historically, in the last 10 games, more times than not when these teams have played, it's gone under. I think with the rain and everything, I could see this. I could see this game going under. What do you think, JB? 44 more points in this Patriots Dolphins game. What's your gut telling you? Patriots and Dolphins. The statistics are kind of leading me to believe that this game is going to go under, especially with the weather.
What's the weather?
It's supposed to be a little bit of rain in the area. Doesn't look like it's going to be a severe downpour or anything, but there could be some rain. Yeah, I would have to lean towards the under as well.
Yeah, you know the Patriots played last week. They lost to the Raiders, and it was raining as well. Same type, wasn't like pour around, anything like that. But there was still, precipitation in the air, all around. That affected the team play. What is great right now? They're so firm, they're so easy and everything. You know what I mean? So I gotta take the under for sure. Under with the Patriots dub.
All right, JB, let's go ahead and until we get some other questions pouring in, let's give our predictions for these games, man. So Jacksonville at Cincinnati. Who do you got in that game? Jacksonville.
I know a couple people that picked Jacksonville today for the upset. What's up, Mickey? Game day.
I'm gonna have to lean towards Cincinnati, ATS as well. Okay. Next, Giants at Dallas.
Giants at Dallas. I got that.
Oh yeah, I got Dallas. I got Dallas here.
Mahomes interception, blessed up P.
Mahomes interception is what Blessed Up P asked.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go look at Mahomes game log. Let's go also see let's go see how many interceptions the Philadelphia Eagles had last season. It looks like they ranked 12th most, so right about average, to be honest with you. There were some other teams that had 13 interceptions last season as well. So just last year speaking, right? And I hear that the Eagles defense is I heard a guy in here earlier today say that their secondary isn't good. Maybe their defense is a little bit took a little bit of a downgrade during the offseason. But let's go look at Mahomes' game log real quick and go see how many times he's thrown an interception against the Eagles throughout his career. He threw one in the most recent game, which was in that championship last year. And then let's go check 2023. So 1 out of 1 times against the Eagles, he's thrown a pick. And then let's go check 2023. So 1 out of 1 times against the Eagles, he's thrown a pick. The last 2 games he's played against the Eagles, he's thrown an interception. Let me look to see. The last 2 out of 3 games, he didn't throw one in the the 2022, 2023 season in that championship game. So it's last 2 out of 3 games. He's thrown an interception against the Eagles. The last 3 out of 4 games against the Eagles, he's thrown an interception. There's probably an easier way to find this than I'm doing it, but I don't.
I'd probably say that 9 times out of 10, it looks like he's going to throw an interception to the Eagles.
And so, yeah, there you have it. Last 3 out of 4 games, career games against the Eagles, he's thrown an interception. So, what's your gut telling you today, JB? You know, we can talk about statistics, and statistics are good, but
he's going to throw an interception.
You think he's going to throw one?
Yeah, I ain't going off that. That's just, I think that's a good one right there. He threw one last week. Right, he usually has a knack early in the season to throw one. In his career, he's usually throwing them early on in the season. Later in the season, he tails off and ends up going like almost perfect. Right, doesn't throw any, like dramatically drops like 50 to 80%. Yeah, probably. I like that. That's good money right there, I'd say. Mahomes and Wilson, easy pick. Yeah, that's good money, I think, both ways. What's up, Santana? Yo, guys. While you're actually saying that, what's up? At US, right? Not Move Podcast. Now at US, go to our YouTube channel, click the more section with the links, drop it down. It's got our link, click it. 125% for first 3 deposits. Bet US. Promo code not moved. Yeah, what's up? I like that.
Might as well hop on that with that right there. Those 2 right there.
Well, what else are you guys feeling today? A sleeper that I was, kind of talking about was Trey Benson, running back for the Cardinals today. I think he matches up very well against that weak Carolina defense. I think when everybody thinks about running back for Arizona, they naturally think James Conner. I think Trey Benson could have a pretty big day for like a sleeper. Also, I already mentioned the for a sleeper, Brenton Strange for Jacksonville. I don't know if you consider him a sleeper or not, but I kind of do. But I would also really look at those tight ends.
Have a good day in offense.
Those tight ends for Philadelphia. Granson. Since Goddard is out, Chiefs were vulnerable to tight end receiving yards and whatnot last season. The only problem with that is that Philadelphia calls a very high percentage of rushing plays. What were you saying, JB?
Somebody asked, will Travis Hunter have a good day on offense?
Travis Hunter for Jacksonville? I think he very well could, yeah. Because Cincinnati's pass defense last season, they ranked 22nd, so they were below average. Opponent yards per completion, they were below average at defending against the yards per completion. And then to the specific position, they weren't terrible. I think it's a decent spot for Hunter.
said you're going to start Hunter over Xavier Legette.
Hunter over Leggett. Who does Carolina play again? Arizona. Arizona much better pass defense than Cincinnati. Projected points in that Panther Cardinal game, what I'm seeing here is 44.5. And then in the Jacksonville Cincinnati game, projected to be 49, around 49. So there's
more points over.
There's more projected points to be scored in that Jacksonville Cincinnati game. No, I'm excited about today, man. Oh, we were doing our picks, JB. We stopped halfway through our picks. So we both said Cincinnati. We both said Dallas, Chicago, and Detroit. I got Detroit. Ooh, you got Chicago in that one?
Yes, sir.
Let's go, JP. Okay, Rams and Titans.
Bears.
Didn't you say Titans? Or you have your picks right there, don't you?
Yeah, I got mine right
Right here. Yes, sir.
Cool. Rams and Titans. Who do you got?
I got the Titans.
I'm gonna go with the Titans in that one too. Patriots and Dolphins.
Patriots.
Give me the Dolphins. San Francisco at New Orleans.
Fran.
Give me New Orleans.
This would be the week that New Orleans does win, though.
Hey man, they played Arizona kind of tough last week.
They had their starter stuff.
The backups, that's the only reason I said. But this would be the week that said that. New Orleans could do it.
Yeah. Yep. And with the backups with San Francisco, all the injuries and stuff. Yeah, I think this could be a sneaky spot for the Saints. Buffalo and Jets.
Nobody. What is it? What does Chris Berman
say? Nobody circles the wagon like before. Or something, whatever he says. Yeah, I'm going to Bills.
I'm gonna go Bills in that one. I know a lot of people are thinking Jets upset. I could see it, but and I kind of want to see it, man. I like Justin Fields. I like the Jets.
I just gotta see more.
Right.
I gotta see more.
Seattle at Pittsburgh. I think you said you had Pitt, right?
Yeah.
I like Seattle in that game. Cleveland at Baltimore. I like Baltimore.
At Baltimore.
Denver at Indianapolis. I like Denver.
I pick Denver.
Carolina at Arizona.
Easy.
Ooh. I think this could be a sneaky spot, man. I'll go Arizona. But, Carolina has an all-time record of 15-6 against Arizona, and Carolina has won the last 7 out of 10 games against Arizona. I'm going to go Arizona, but I can see Carolina getting this one. Arizona almost lost to the Saints last week. I think Carolina is a little bit more well put together and than the Saints. I think Carolina got rolled by Jacksonville last week, but it's a new week, so we'll see. But still give me Arizona. Philadelphia at Kansas City. Who do you got?
Good.
You got Philly?
Yeah.
The statistics lead me to believe Philadelphia, but my heart, my gut tells me that the Chiefs pull this one off. Not really even going to talk about the Sunday Night Football or any of that stuff. Receptions. What other players you guys on the fence about today? What other players you guys liking?
Jalen Hurts ain't doing nothing. Yeah, no. I picked the Eagles, bro.
I'll just kind of list
Jalen Hurts is not winning MVP.
I'll just kind of list some of my favorite players today without just
Davante Adams. You said on the fence about. Somebody said
Davante Adams. Hold up. And he's with the Rams now. So they're playing the Titans. Yeah, I mean, you're on the fence about them for good reason. The Tennessee Titans allowed the least amount of passing yards per game last season.
I always said who you think says all right.
What's that?
He's saying that
He does all right today.
but he's
He's better than Puka.
And then Tennessee allowed the least amount of not only passing yards per game to opposing teams last season, but they allowed the least amount of receiving yards to wide receivers as well. So I'm real skeptical about how well the Rams pass the ball in this one. I think the Rams will have to run the ball. That's where Tennessee was more vulnerable, but the Rams were not as good at running the ball last season. I really do give Tennessee a rushing advantage in this one with Pollard. The Rams last season, their rush defense wasn't good. These teams are very similar besides the passing game. I feel like the Rams are much better at passing the ball, much more proven at passing the ball than the Titans, but the Titans' defense, pass defense, is just so good, at least it was last season, that it's kind of a wash. And really, in my eyes, it's who's going to be able to run the ball better, and I think Tennessee will. Just based on these statistics that I'm looking at.
Falcons, Vikings. What's the
piece? Wait.
So I know
that
that
one
was
was hot because last time that these two quarterbacks faced was the Natty Penix versus JJ.
So I don't have a lot of information.
There's not
too much to be on these guys
because
they haven't played.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, I mean,
Penix got
you
more on.
like happy at the quarter of the year, you know what I mean?
But
They got one game. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I know we can't really go off of the QB's numbers. I mean, you had to go to college at that with him, but that's. I
think what we
now
can
they face off 2 years later.
I think what we can do is look at these defenses last year and see how the defenses matched up against opponent rushing yards per game. So, and then the passing yards allowed per game. Passing yards allowed per game. So let me pull that up. Blessed up, P. Passing yards allowed per game in 2024, Falcons and Vikings. Minnesota allowed a lot. Minnesota allowed a lot. Atlanta was below average as well in passing yards allowed. Rushing yards allowed. Minnesota's run defense was excellent last season. And Atlanta was about average in rush defense. Passing play percentage in the NFL. This season, Minnesota is called a high percentage of rushing plays. And what do we say about Atlanta? Kind of average at yardage allowed through the on the ground. And Atlanta ranks 13th in passing play percentage. So I think Atlanta, man. I think Atlanta, if you like a wide receiver for Atlanta, man, I think, you know. So what I would do, here's you know, one of the reasons why is, you know, Minnesota allowed the second most receiving yards to wide receivers last season. They allowed the most receptions to wide receivers last season. I've heard some good things about Penix. And when you're looking at yards per catch, last season for this Falcons team, is Mooney in? Yeah, Mooney, dude.
Yeah.
Looking at Mooney.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking at Mooney.
Guys.
And I have a personal friend. I remember a couple years ago, we were watching a game, and he was just like, hey, man, people aren't ready to talk about this, but Mooney's really the number one receiver for Atlanta. Now, how true or not, you know, that is one thing. But he seemed to really like Mooney. And, you know, Mooney ranks not only first best on the Falcons in yards per catch last season, but he ranks 9th best in the NFL. And when we look at yards allowed per completion in the year of 2024, my guess is that the Vikings are going to be ranked back on this list. They were about average. So it would have been nice if they were a little bit worse at that, but still average. Yeah, I mean, I'd be looking at Mooney for Atlanta to have a good game. And then didn't we say Atlanta's rush defense was kind of bad last year? Opponent rushing yards allowed per game. Atlanta ranked 15th in that category. Atlanta's pass defense was actually worse relative to the other teams in the league. The question is, how much does Minnesota pass the ball? You know, in that close matchup, I think we got a good idea of what Minnesota is going to do in regards to their play calling, because they were just in a close game. And Minnesota called a lot of rushing plays in week 1. So I'm thinking that they may do the same thing against Atlanta today. It may be where they try to attack the Atlanta defense. And I would be kind of, you know, I think I would be looking for a pass catching back for Minnesota. And we can go look at the game log last week to see if there were any how many
DK, Jackson Smith, Breece Hall, or Mika at my flex today.
What were the names?
DK, Jackson Smith, Breece Hall,
or Mika at flex.
I like Emeka, and I also like potentially Breece Hall today. Vikings. So I just kind of want to see who was a good pass catching, or who got the most targets last week for the Vikings in the passing game? That was a running back. Mason, 1 target, 1 reception. Aaron Jones, 3 targets, 44 yards and a touchdown. I can see Aaron Jones doing well through the with pass catching today. Since Atlanta allowed the 3rd most receiving touchdowns to running backs last season and the most receptions allowed to running backs last season. My only concern is that Minnesota runs the ball a little bit too much. So I think, they're going to have to hopefully they have to pass a little bit more today. What games are you guys looking the most forward to? Yeah, I'm looking forward to that Philadelphia and Kansas City game. That Seattle-Pittsburgh game should be fun with Aaron or the DK Metcalf revenge. I'm really looking forward to the Buffalo Bills and Jets game, specifically because of Fields. I want to see how Fields does. I think something, that we have to look into as well with Justin Fields is how good or bad Buffalo did against rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks last season. Buffalo ranked 8th best in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks. So I am a little concerned about Justin Fields, but I think, didn't he have a decent week last week against Pitt?
Yeah.
And Pitt ranked
Really
and Pittsburgh ranked 5th best in last season. So Buffalo's defense against quarterback rushes were worse than Pittsburgh's. So can he do it? Yeah. Let's go through this. Something sleepy that I was looking at, guys, is a Russell Wilson rushing yards and Russell Wilson maybe an anytime touchdown. Was looking at that. Dallas allowed the most rushing yards to quarterbacks last season. They allowed the most rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks last season. And I was looking at Russell Wilson's game log, his career history against Dallas, and it was pretty decent. With his rushing yards and anytime touchdown and stuff. I think that could be a sleepy pick for an anytime touchdown. Russell Wilson. Or just going over his receiving, or not his rushing yards. Detroit.
Scatterboo play.
Scatterboo. I actually kind of liked Scatterboo today. Kind of. He's going up against a weak running back receiving defense. So I give him a little bit of extra upside today against Dallas. Dallas allowed. Let me get back to that my Cowboy notes here. The Giants allowed. The Cowboys allowed the 6th most receiving yards to running backs last season. So I think that gives extra upside to Scatterboo and Tracy. Also, Dallas did not do good against yards allowed per game against the rush. So I think, Dallas is very vulnerable to the rush. It's, how effectively and efficiently can the Giants run the ball, man? So I think, Scatterboo is decent today. Now, I mean, when we look at the Giants, when we look at that box score, we can go look at that box score too. Pretty sure Tracy was targeted more in the passing game than Scatterboo last week. Hold up.
What's up, bro? What's up, Santana? Man, this has been
really good.
What?
About 31 comments between
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, appreciate you guys joining today, man. So I'm not the type of guy, and I don't think JB is either, man. Or we think we know everything more than you do. No, I mean, like, I have my strengths when it comes to this sports stuff, and I also have my weaknesses, So I definitely like guys' opinions and thoughts and comments and questions. I'm, real analytical. JB is just, if he watches the games. He's got a feel for the game, and him and I have been friends for like 20 years, JB. So
yeah, they're
we
real life.
It's not just the
Screen.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit about us. I understand I have my flaws because, and also when we're looking at this historical data about what happened last season, the bad thing about it is things have changed since last season, So I think once we progress a little bit and start to see what these teams are really made of, in week 4, 5, 6, and so on. Once we have a bigger sample size of what these current teams are doing, is when I'll feel more confident in making, more accurate assessments. But right now, that's all we have is at least we have week 1 under our belt.
Yeah.
What would you say are like the biggest changes? I mean, whenever a quarterback change happens, I think that's very significant.
This non-casual podcast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or reused without the authorized written consent of the Not Move Podcast Network. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.